Alright everyone, we start off today with a very funny video. So funny that it might need to go in the comedy category because Kamala Harris is pretending to be like a celebrant of Kwanzaa. Link in the description as well. Archived, of course, to her tweet. We're going to be getting into this, the history of Kwanzaa in brief and other things. First and foremost, though, YouTube openly brags now about the fact that it sends most news and political traffic to authoritative sources, which means like Fox and CNN and the Young Turds, thus disenfranchising literally tens of thousands of significant independent creators that do the same thing like myself. If you'd like to share out the link to this video on YouTube to another platform where it'll be more searchable, I highly appreciate that, my fellow clankers. If not, there will be links in the description and also a pinned comment for those of you on YouTube to 4 other video hosting sites that do not favor MSM sources and actually are still about independent content creation. Big news in the coming year, probably with regards to output thereupon. But this is great. This is exactly what I expected. Kamala Harris is the most cheap, sleazy, inauthentic, empty suit politician, I think, of the modern age. I think that people like AOC don't hold a candle to Kamala Harris. There is a reason why after shooting out of a cannon very briefly, after the first Dem debate, everyone else was like, I guess they got a big ego about them and figured that they couldn't lose because they're all a bunch of blind egotists. Kamala, out of nowhere, was the only one that was reasonably coherent. All of a sudden, she hits like 10, I think, in polling, or 8 or something, then crashes back down, drops out a couple months later due to money problems. The fact is, if you looked at polling among Democrats, this isn't the mainline population. 90% of Republicans think that she's Satan, for partisan reasons. Even among Democrats, Kamala Harris was somewhere shy of Pete Buttigieg and barely ahead of Michael Bloomberg when it came to likability rankings among the Democratic contenders. One of the reasons why Biden won is that he was on the upper tier. He was on the upper tier simply because he looks like a befuddled old grandpa instead of a sleazy person. Now, of course, he's sleazy too, but unlike Kamala, he's better at hiding it. So when Kamala Harris said, "Oh, happy Kwanzaa, yeah, my daddy used to celebrate it, and we do our Kwanzaa meals." Okay, first and foremost, what do you think the over and under is? What do you think the 50-50 break-even chance is that fake menorah, which is literally what the little lamp thing of Kwanzaa is? I'll get into the history of Kwanzaa and its knockoff status as well, and its founder briefly in a moment. What do you want to believe that all the decorations behind her in this address are less than a week old? That it's a prop? It's a stage prop. She fucking got the little lamp, she got the fucking candles, she'll get the fucking pineapples and shit like that, and sets it up. She never celebrated it. Unless she's saying that her family were a bunch of black nationalists. But her mom was of Indian extraction, not of African extraction, so I don't exactly understand. In a way, she's kind of trying to culturally appropriate it. The founder of Kwanzaa, who is still alive, by the way, because it was founded in literally 1966 after the Watts riots, was a black nationalist. And black nationalists back then, they would have said, well, we're people of color, so we're basically the same as a dark-skinned Hispanic or a person from India. No, it was black Pan-African nationalism that they believed in. The founder here, I half expect him to come out and say, fuck Kamala Harris, just out of a sense of purism. He literally was a felon. He served, 5 years in prison? He abducted a woman and with a bunch of other people, including his ex-wife, he was fucking torturing her. He was convicted of this, claimed afterwards to be a political prisoner, and now acts as a professor. He's a black racial nationalist. This would be like if a white nationalist were to say, well, the Japanese have lightish colored skin, so they're basically white, so they can celebrate, Odin's Day or something. It doesn't make any sense. Certainly the puristic aspect that would have been there in the proto-black nationalist movement of the 1960s would not look kindly upon, with its extremist ties as well, would not look kindly on a tough on crime Kamala Harris, especially tough on drug crime. Literally jailing tens of thousands of black people in her home state. So, yeah, she's really looking out for her people, as she would generally term them when it's time to get votes, who is half of Indian extraction and represents literally the political establishment. She's the running mate of Beijing Biden from the mainline party. The black nationalists, a lot of them abandoned the Democrats because they correctly identified. You can't even blame them for this. The Democrats talk a big game every election, promise us the moon on a stick, and then they give us nothing. They let us down over and over again. There's a reason why there's been a massive swing of especially Hispanic, but also to an extent Asian and sometimes even black voters towards Trump in the last election. He was gaining 2-1 off of the white voters that he had lost. That's because you've got a big tent Republican populist movement, and you've got a very, very small and shrinking tent of people on the left. Look, the left is literally driving away all the Hispanics by wanting to become a second Venezuela anyway, #1. And Kamala's on board with that, at least if you ask her in public. In private, I'm sure she's more of a corporate politician. I think she's more like a Beijing Biden. She's tough on crime or neo-lib and shit like that. And at the same time, engaging in the id poll all the time. It's all they fucking talk about. Happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah and stuff. Look, the little lamp from Kwanzaa is literally nothing more than a menorah with African colors, with the colors of African pan-nationalism. I mean, literally, there's no other way to describe it. It's a menorah, dude. You just borrowed it from another religious holiday. Now, if you want to create like, well, we've got, our black religious holidays, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, but we can't pretend that it's like an ancient holiday, or it's like Wicca. Wicca's basically is adapted, and I can get into the history, it's invented by Gardner, who wanted to see topless priests, and so he developed this concept of Wicca. Now I like hedge Wicca and stuff like that, I don't have a problem with it, but it's not an authentic ancient religion. It's got its own celebrations and stuff. It's knockoff paganism for a Western, more modern audience. It's basically sanitized paganism without the ritual slaughter of animals and stuff like that. It's basically all it fucking is, dude. Satanism is knockoff too. To tell the truth, it's basically just libertarianism with a floor show. Just so you know, Satanists don't worship the devil. Most of them self-describe. Kamala Harris, her mom's from India. I can conceive that her dad, maybe if he was like a radical racial ethno-nat or something, would, maybe celebrate Kwanzaa because that's its origins. It's funny because Biden's wishing people a happy Kwanzaa too. So Biden is refusing to disavow radical racial ethno-nationalism now, at least for certain groups of people. Because, see, why would he do that? It's not because he cares or he hates, white people, because he is an old white male. He's a sign of his times. No, he's a total bigot. I'm sure he refers to the help when he's in private. We'll probably get to see him do that in public too, since he's got fucking Alzheimer's disease and it's getting worse and worse day by day. No, it's to pander. The Democrats love this. The whole idea of people of color smashes together groups from all around the world with different languages, cultures, climates, religious backgrounds, different times of different nations that they happen to have generally inhabited and stuff, and smashes them together. It's almost like the concept of whiteness. It's funny when they talk about deconstructing whiteness, and I've come to the conclusion that the only reason that they want to deconstruct the technically constructed core of whiteness and construct a people of culture mythology is for voting purposes. It's because white people tend to be the clear-cut majority of the population in most Western nations. Therefore, as a counterfoil to that, to prevent populism essentially, and to perpetuate globalism, they try to make people who happen to have light-colored skin feel guilty and not part of an in-group group, so they don't have a solidarity movement, while creating another one as a counterbalance to the larger population. It's basically the only way to maintain the globalist status quo of establishment neoliberal 51% voted for me so I'm God politics. Otherwise, you'd see solidarity movements springing up, and then, things would actually potentially they would get better because the workers would look out for workers instead of looking out for some in-group that doesn't even fucking technically exist. You see this with white ethno-nationalists too. They'd rather live under an abusive regime run by white people than one that was functional but had, people of color or whatever the term the liberals dream up tomorrow is. It becomes a little bit odd, but I'm liking it. We can expect far more of this bullshit from Kamala. It's becoming more prevalent too. You seem like they're like happy Ramadan and happy everything except for Christmas, of course. I've still never seen any of them celebrating pagan Yule. When are we going to get our pandering? We want a solidarity movement. We're a minority of the population. See, they focus on race as opposed to these other things. So they wanted to create this weird togetherness movement, and it becomes difficult with people like Kamala Harris because, again, a black racial supremacist isn't going to consider her anything other than maybe honorarily of color or something like that. She's half of Indian extraction. If she were to try to join a Hindu pan-nationalist uprising or something, oh yeah, Modi's a great guy, it would come off as inauthentic. And it is, because she's a sleazy turd. That's about all. Peace out.